We're signing the house to your brother. He needs it more than you do. My mother didn't say hello. She didn't ask how I was doing, didn't ask about my job or my health or whether I'd eaten. She called on a Tuesday at 2:47 in the afternoon and led with that, flat, factual, already decided, the way you'd announce a change in the weather. I was at my desk at Meridian Capital when the call came in. I had a client portfolio analysis open on one screen, a macro spreadsheet on the other, and a cup of coffee going cold beside my keyboard. I looked at her name on my phone for exactly 3 seconds. Then I answered. Mom, I said. Which house? Don't play dumb, Eloise. The Fernwood house. Your father and I have discussed it thoroughly. Derek needs stability right now. He's going through a significant transition and that property would give him somewhere to land. Derek, my brother. 36 years old. Twice divorced. Currently between jobs in the way that some people are permanently between jobs. Not between two things but floating above the concept of employment entirely. Derek, who had borrowed $14,000 from my parents 2 Christmases ago and referred to it as a gift every time they brought it up. Derek, who had not paid rent anywhere in 4 years that I could account for and who called that living intentionally. I pulled up my title documents on a third window. Force of habit. I work in financial analysis. I verify before I speak. Mom, I said carefully. I bought that house. I saved for 6 years and put down $150,000 of my own money. My name is on the deed. Sole ownership. There is no mechanism by which you and Dad can sign it to anyone. Family homes belong to the family. My father's voice cut in, he'd been there the whole time listening. You used our address for 6 months during the closing process. You had your mail sent here. That establishes a family connection to the property. I want to pause here for a second. Before I tell you what happened next, have you ever had a family member try to claim legal ownership of something you built yourself, and then act like you were being unreasonable for pushing back? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. The Fernwood house sat on a 1/4-acre lot in a pocket of Raleigh that had been quietly transforming since 2018. When I bought it in the spring of 2021, it was a 1,940 square foot craftsman bungalow with original hardwood floors, a detached garage I'd converted into a legal rental unit, and a kitchen that smelled permanently of whoever had lived there before me. Coffee and old wood and something floral I never identified. I paid $412,000. I put down $150,000. That $150,000 represented 10 years of decisions. A decade of packing lunches when colleagues went out, of driving the same 2016 Civic while people around me leased German cars, of putting 30% of every paycheck into an account I did not touch for emergencies that were not emergencies. I had a very specific definition of emergency. Derek's rent was not one of them, though it had taken me 11 years to fully commit to that position. My parents had never lived at the Fernwood address. They had never paid a bill there, never mowed the lawn, never fixed the water heater that failed in February of 2022 and cost me $2,300 on a Saturday morning with no warning. The 6 months I'd used their address for mail was a practical overlap during a move between apartments. Standard, temporary, the kind of administrative convenience families extend without ceremony. My property manager, a woman named Gwen Torres who had managed 2 of my rental units for 3 years, had texted me 14 days before my mother's call. She said she was fielding unsolicited inquiries from a development group. She said the number they'd mentioned was serious. I had told her I was thinking about it. I had not told my parents any of this. I need to put you both on hold for one moment, I said. I didn't mute them. I opened my contacts and dialed the Wake County Register of Deeds, a number I had saved from a client matter 6 months prior, and merged the calls. A man answered. Wake County Register of Deeds, this is Martin. Hi Martin. My name is Eloise Hargrove. I have my parents on a 3-way call with me right now. My father is asserting that he and my mother have the authority to transfer a property that is titled solely in my name to another family member. Could you explain to everyone on this call what would actually need to happen for a deed transfer to occur? A brief pause. The kind of pause professionals make when they are choosing their words carefully. Of course, Martin said. A valid deed transfer in North Carolina requires the notarized signature of the current title holder. If a deed reflects sole ownership under one individual, no transfer of any kind can be executed without that person's written, notarized consent. A family member's mailing address history has no bearing on ownership. Verbal family agreements have no bearing on ownership. The deed is the controlling document. My father started talking over him. She used our address during the acquisition period. That establishes. Sir, Martin said with the patience of someone who had navigated this exact conversation before, mailing address is not a legal ownership mechanism under North Carolina property law. The title holder's signature is required. That is the complete answer. My mother said sharply, Eloise, hang up that call this instant. I thanked Martin, let him go, and sat in the quiet of my office with my parents still on the line. Through the glass partition I could see my colleague Donna at her desk, headphones on, completely unaware that my entire family architecture was being restructured in real time. Okay, I said when the silence had stretched long enough. Is there anything else? My father's voice had gone tight. We will get an attorney. That's your right, I said. Let me know what they find. I hung up. I finished my cold coffee. I opened my portfolio analysis and kept working. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that has nothing to do with how many hours you've slept. I had been carrying it since I was 22 years old, since the first time my parents asked me to step back so Derek could have something I had earned. I was fresh out of NC State then. Finance degree, job offer from a mid-size investment firm in Charlotte, first-generation college graduate in a family where that meant something. My parents were proud. For approximately 3 weeks. Then Derek's restaurant concept collapsed. He had invested $22,000 of borrowed money into a food truck that never passed its health inspection, and my parents called to ask if I could defer my start date by a month and cover his last 2 months of rent so he wouldn't have a gap on his credit report. Just this once, my mother said. He's family, Eloise. I did it. I covered $1,800 of Derek's rent while I was living on ramen in a sublet, and I told myself it was once. It was not once. There was the car in 2019. Derek needed something reliable, my parents said. He couldn't get financed on his own. Could I co-sign? It was just a signature, they said. He'd make the payments. He made 7 of them before the car was repossessed from a Kroger parking lot during a hailstorm, and I spent 4 months on the phone with creditors rebuilding a credit score I had spent years constructing. There was the $9,000 ask in 2021, timed almost precisely to my Fernwood closing. My parents framed it as an emergency. Derek needed to relocate, the transition was difficult, the family needed to pull together. I said no. It was the first time I had said that word out loud to my parents and held it there without immediately softening it into something smaller. The silence on the phone lasted long enough that I checked twice to confirm the call hadn't dropped. They didn't speak to me for 6 weeks. But I bought the house. The Fernwood house was not just a property asset. It was evidence. Physical, permanent, titled evidence that after 11 years of being treated like a reserve fund with feelings, something of mine had survived intact. Every time I unlocked the front door I thought, this one they cannot reach. I had been wrong about that. Or I had almost been wrong. The difference between almost and actually is sometimes just a phone number you happen to have saved. The next morning, Philip Osei stopped by my desk on his way to a client meeting. Philip was my direct manager, 44, former portfolio analyst at a firm in Atlanta, the kind of person who absorbed information quietly and responded only when he had something worth saying. He looked at my face and set down his travel mug. What happened? He said. My parents tried to transfer my house to my brother yesterday. Live call with the county recorder's office. He was quiet for a moment. Tried. The recorder explained deed law in real time. It was very educational. He sat down in the chair across from my desk, which he almost never did. You okay? I considered the question honestly, which I did not always do. I think I'm at the end of something, I said. I'm not sure what comes after it yet. He nodded. Then he said, you know, I reviewed that recusal file. The one from 6 months ago. I knew. 6 months prior, during a routine advisory file review, I had discovered that a small business loan application moving through a firm we had an advisory relationship with belonged to Derek. I had flagged it to Philip immediately, recused myself from anything touching that file, and documented every step of the chain of custody in writing. I had not contacted the lending team. I had not made any recommendation. I had simply stepped away and left a clear paper trail. Derek's application had been declined 3 weeks later. Not by me, I'd had zero contact with the file after recusal. But he blamed me anyway. My parents blamed me too, in a tight, careful way, never saying it directly, just referencing the loan situation, in a tone that made clear they held me responsible for a decision I had deliberately not made. The recusal was textbook, Philip said. I want you to know that. I know it was, I said. I just needed to know you knew it was. He picked up his travel mug and stood. Whatever's happening with your family, document it. You already know how. I did. The developer offer came in writing 4 days after my mother's call. Gwen forwarded it to my personal email at 7:22 in the evening. I was on my couch with leftover Thai food and a case file I'd brought home, and I read the number 3 times. $847,000. 30-day close. As is. The development group wanted the lot. They were assembling a cluster of 4 townhomes on that block, and the Fernwood parcel was the last piece they needed. The bungalow itself was secondary. They'd tear it down. I sat with that for a moment. The floors I'd refinished. The garage I'd converted. The kitchen that still smelled like someone else's life layered over mine. Then I thought about the water heater. The 7 months of covering Derek's insurance lapse from 2020 that I had never mentioned to anyone. The credit score. The 6 weeks of silence after I said no. I called Gwen at 7:51. Send me the purchase agreement, I said. I'll review it tonight. I did not call my parents. I did not text Derek. I did not post anything anywhere. I sat at my kitchen table with the agreement and a pen that had been living in my junk drawer for 2 years, and I read every line. I signed it on a Friday evening with a glass of water and no ceremony. The close took 29 days. Clean title, cash deal, no contingencies. My parents called 4 times during that window, twice about the transfer situation, once to tell me Derek had found a therapist and was really working on himself, once to ask if I was coming home for Easter. I answered every call. I said very little. I did not mention the sale. The wire hit my account on a Thursday morning at 9:14. After mortgage payoff, agent fee and closing costs, I cleared $591,400. I sat at my desk at Meridian Capital and looked at that number on my phone's banking app for a long time. My coffee was getting cold again. I drank it anyway. That afternoon Philip walked past my desk and raised an eyebrow, a question. I finished it, I said. He nodded once and kept walking. I want to tell you what the vulnerability of that period actually felt like, because I think I've made it sound cleaner than it was. There were 3 nights during the 29-day close when I sat in my car in the Meridian parking garage after everyone had left, and I thought about calling my mother back. Not to stop the sale. Just to, I don't know, explain myself. Make her understand why. Give her the version of the story where I was still a good daughter even while doing this. I didn't make those calls. But I thought about them. The thing about being the responsible one in a family is that it becomes an identity before you're old enough to consent to it. I was 11 when I started keeping track of things. Who owed who, what was fair, what the actual numbers were. My parents called it maturity. I called it necessity. Someone had to know where the money was going. Derek never wanted to know. My parents preferred not to. That left me. And for 22 years I had believed that knowing, tracking, managing, holding, was the same as belonging. That if I kept the ledger I kept the family. That if I stopped something would fall. Sitting in that parking garage on the 3rd night, I finally understood that nothing was going to fall. The family would reorganize around the absence of my money the same way it had always reorganized around everything else. Loudly, briefly, and then completely. They would be fine. Derek would find an apartment. My parents would help him. Life would continue in its established pattern. And I would be free of a debt I had never agreed to carry. That was the night I stopped thinking about calling. My parents called on a Saturday morning, 5 weeks after close. My mother first. Then my father joining from another room, the same formation as always. Derek found a place in Cary, my mother said. It's not much, but it's a start. We're helping with what we can, but the security deposit is. We were wondering if the Fernwood situation had resolved, whether there was anything. The Fernwood house sold 32 days ago, I said. Silence. The particular silence of a calculation being revised. What? My father's voice, careful now. To who? A development group. They're building townhomes on the lot. My mother, slower. How much did you? I'm not going to share that, I said. What I will tell you is that the money is mine. I saved it, I bought the house, I maintained it for 3 years and I sold it. The county recorder explained the relevant law to you directly. There was nothing to transfer and there never was. Eloise. My father's voice had dropped into a register I didn't hear often. Something between anger and something rawer underneath it. Something that might have been grief if he'd had the vocabulary for it. We raised you. We gave you everything we had. I know you did, I said. And I meant it. My parents had not been monsters. They had been people who loved one child in a way that cost another child, and had never fully reckoned with the arithmetic of that. I know you worked hard and sacrificed things and did your best with what you understood. I believe all of that. Then. But I have been covering gaps in this family since I was 22 years old. I co-signed a loan that got repossessed and spent months cleaning that up. I covered rent and emergencies and transitions that were not my emergencies or my transitions. I did it because I thought that was what being a good daughter meant. I understand now that it meant something different to everyone involved. My mother started to speak. I let her finish. When she was done, I said, I love you both. I'm not disappearing. But I am not a resource. I'm your daughter. If you want a relationship based on that, I'm here. If you need some time to be angry first, I understand. But I'm not contributing to Derek's deposit. And I won't be explaining that decision again. I said, I love you. I hung up. Here is what I know now that I didn't know at 22. 1. Saying yes when you mean no does not protect the people you love. It protects the story they've built about you. Those are different things. 2. Documents don't negotiate. A deed says what it says. A recusal file says what it says. Paper is not sentimental, and that is sometimes exactly what you need. Something that cannot be guilt, cannot be pressured, cannot be reframed. Learn to let the paper speak. 3. The moment you stop being a load-bearing wall, you find out whether the structure needed you or just preferred you. Most of the time the answer is the same. It was fine. It always would have been. The question was whether you would be. I moved the following April. A 2-bedroom condo in North Hills, 12 minutes from Meridian, morning sun on the east balcony, a kitchen that smelled like nothing yet because it was mine to fill. I bought it cash and put the remainder into a brokerage account. Derek got the Cary apartment. My parents helped with the deposit. I don't know the details and I didn't ask. He texted me once, 8 weeks later. Just, heard the Fernwood deal went well. Congrats. I wrote back, thanks Derek. Hope the new place is working out. That was the whole conversation. It was enough. On a Saturday in May I made coffee and took it to the balcony. No phone. No spreadsheet. No list of things I owed anyone. The morning light came in from the east and fell across the railing in long warm bars, and I watched it move slowly across the concrete floor the way light does when it has nowhere to be. I had spent 11 years as the load-bearing wall of a house built on someone else's blueprint. I had held up the structure while pieces of it were handed away, borrowed, repossessed, and blamed on me. I had believed that was the job. That holding the family together meant holding myself responsible for everything that threatened to come apart. It wasn't the job. The job I had assigned myself didn't exist. It had just been a story, a very long, very expensive story, about a daughter who confused loyalty with liability and called it love. I finished my coffee. The light kept moving. I had nowhere to be and nothing to fix. That felt, for the first time in 11 years, exactly right. Have you ever been treated like your success was a family resource? Like what you built belonged to everyone except you? Tell me in the comments. I'm Eloise. I stepped outside the blueprint. And I'm still standing.